of this as designing an airport, right? You arrive at the airport has to balance control and flow.
Welcome to Tech Bytes with Ash, where we discuss trends in digital technology that support true business outcomes. I'm Ashu Bhatia, a consultant, an author, and a practitioner of all practical insights on your technology investments.
Well, hello there, and welcome back to my channel, Tech Bytes with Ash. Today, I want to do a second episode on the data management piece where I started last time. As you saw, the three pillars of data management was the first being data foundation, getting your data organized. And today, I want to focus on the middle pillar, which is organizing your enterprise, the people, the roles, the operating model to get this thing to be successful. Data moves from the tsunami of raw data to organized information so you can sift out the signals from the noise and then eventually look for patterns to make your decisions so that as you execute business, you have a feedback loop to really make an impact. The key here would be that as you look at your organization, depending on how big, small, or medium scale you might be, there's already things that you're doing in your business. There's information systems today. But how do you make sure that whether you have data and analytics as an organization embedded into your lines of business or as an enterprise umbrella, how do you make sure that you're actually leveraging each piece of data generated within your organization or outside to make more informed decisions to be more effective and efficient in your business decision making? So as you see here, the typical operating model has, a couple of functions, right? So you define what functions are needed. You define what services you need. You define interfaces in terms of who will do what and how they hand off to each other and what are their true responsibilities. At the highest level, to make this thing somewhat simple, you see this thick hub, you see a thick spoke, and you see a hybrid balanced approach in the middle. What this means is it's kind of like, again, analogies are important for people who are not really executing on data and analytics or information architecture. Think of this as designing an airport, right? An airport, when you're building and you've got through that whole GPS analogy, you arrive at the airport has to balance control and flow. And what that means is there's regulation, there's important things being happening, but the roads coming in, the roads going out have to take the passengers, the supply chain, etc., to make sure everything is very well coordinated. Now, a fixed hub is where you have everything very central. That will definitely lead to a lot of consistency, a lot of uniform solutions, but it could impact speed. And I'll cover a few examples as to what is applicable, because there's never a perfect answer, but it all depends on the trade-offs you want to make. On the other side, you will see a very, very thick spokes, which means is everything is very federated. The decisions are made in the lines of business or the organizations that are actually having the data to make something useful in terms of insights and then impact. What that leads is to, it generally generates agility in the business environment, but it can definitely lead to a little bit of chaos in everyone trying to do different things and not following certain standards. So again, all these applications are very varied, but there are certain industries, certain size of companies, or certain competitive environments that enforce you to think of one versus the other. For example, the thick hub is more around industries that are more regulated, things that are very, very risk averse, sample, banking, healthcare, etc. But if you look at the thick spokes, there you want more autonomy in the systems of engagement, for example, maybe retail, or sometimes even in supply chain use cases. So the idea is knowing how your organization is laid out, where decisions are happening, which decisions are closer to the consumer, and which decisions entail a need for agility versus a need for more control will determine how you organize different roles. I'll give you an example. I've worked a lot in insurance companies, right? So insurance, once you break it out into property casualty or health or life, typically there's a lot of, in the value chain, you have to do actuarial, you're doing a lot of data crunching to kind of come up with the right product. So your core insurance is something that you've built over the years. Once you have that, you definitely have a little bit of a locked mechanism to your consumers. But the systems of engagement, especially in many countries where the agents are the way of distribution for these insurance products, Those agents are always trying to understand where the customer needs or grab more for the market share. There, the systems of engagement can be more fast moving, whereas the core of the insurance company will be a little more conservative. They'll be a little more slow to move, right? So how you use the data and analytics organization to make sense of your, let's say, actuarial systems, your rating systems is different versus how you are actually trying to kind of connect with your consumers. So maybe things like microinsurance products, which a lot of our clients here in APAC are trying to do. When you embed, let's say, a vehicle insurance in a Grab ride or a Uber ride, or you're trying to do some microinsurance on a travel flight, how can you kind of get very granular and very quickly and really experiment with your partners and ecosystem determines how you leverage data and analytics, and the organization will change. But needless to say, whatever way you decide, the thing that you need is constant collaboration and hence the design of pods, right? What this does is, what I've generally seen is you need data science, the guys who confirm the crunching of numbers to look for patterns. Combine that with some software engineering to make sure the applications can use that. But then more important is the domain. So I would say that real economic value is realized at the intersection of three circles in that Venn diagram, right? So data science, software engineering, and domain expertise. So you definitely want to design pods in exactly the way that you're going to conduct business for whatever use cases you're beginning to solve. Here that you look on this example is, this was with a retail bank that I worked for some time ago. So there are different divisions, right? Lending, service, membership, contact center, marketing. All of these folks already are leveraging data and analytics. But to make this organization scale up and really be industrialized in their AI and data, you want to make sure that you design the demand, management function appropriately, where the demand is coming to your digital labs or analytics lab, and there's some kind of prioritization that happens, and there's a lot of mechanisms and frameworks to help you with that. At that stage, it's mostly around pilots delivery, proving the value, if you will. But as you prove the value, you want to start scaling it. You want to get it into a data factory and industrialize that. So that's when you say scaling the value piece happens. And then once that begins to kind of spread in the organization, that's when you get into run and operations mode, and you really start to say, this is how I'm really leveraging it in all my enterprise, and get it closer to your consumers, so that the decisions can be made in the right earnest, right? So as you see here, how you determine those use cases, how you do those priority of use cases for each one of those functions, how you can kind of make sure that an insights portfolio manager role really imbibes and converts this into some real actionable insights is something that clients are always working towards. Depending on the use case, somewhere between 2 to 4 to 6 weeks is something that people are trying to push the boundaries. Other use cases could be a little slower. So the idea is that when you think of this data organization or the analytics organization, there's no one size fits all answer. I generally get a lot of questions from my C-level, stakeholders that, hey, should I have the chief data officer report to the COO or the CIO or somewhere in between? Should I have a separate chief analytics office function so that I can do some of these things? The way I've looked at it is the answer lies in what you're trying to do from a company strategy, right? If data is an asset and you've already reached some maturity and you're really managing the data insights, the chief data officer could be reporting to maybe a technology function. But if once that is done and your productization and monetization becomes way more important, then your chief analytics officer might be needed to help commercialize some of that and also push the boundaries with maybe a direct report to the CEO or sometimes the chief digital officer. Again, no answer is perfect, but the idea is, what are you trying to do on the spectrum of maturity with the data that you have, and how well can you lubricate that into converting impact for your company? I think all of this will come together once you see the third sequel around how do you really truly monetize data, and then data management, data organization, and monetization realms will come together for you to make some important decisions. Thank you.